Yeah.
What's going on, man?
You.
Doing good, doing good. How about yourself?
Bro, how you been?
Good, good. I saw you went riding with our buddy Austin the other day.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I haven't seen Austin in 2 years. I think
Yeah,
he's been gone.
been a
Yeah.
few years. Yeah, we were chatting that whole time he was back in SoCal, but I never did get to connect with him. But I saw the photo of you guys all riding. I was like, hell yeah.
Did he not go up to KCal for this trip?
He did. He did. He went by during the when the morning show was on, and they put him on air for a little bit. And I know we went out to the Nickelback concert that night, and we were kind of chatting at different shows. But we're always exchanging a couple like metal memes and news and stories and stuff. So I always chat with him every few days. But bummed I didn't get to see him this last time around.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was good to see him, dude. I haven't seen him in a long time. He lost a bunch of weight.
Well, yeah, and that's that military
You're
workout.
absolutely right, dude. I mean, you have to, like, or else you're gonna fail miserably at being in the military.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he's gonna make this like I talked to him, I was like, "Are you gonna re-enlist?" He's like, "Absolutely, man. This is my future." So I thought that was pretty dope.
Yeah, it seems like his calling. He seems really happy there. He's still with the girlfriend too, I think.
I didn't hear about a girlfriend.
Oh, so maybe not then. Oh.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
How you been, bro?
Good, just busy, and things getting busier and busier as the summer rolls on. I mean, no one's as busy as you are. You got to be one of the hardest working guys out there jumping around from gig to gig. But other than that, just
Yeah.
trying to stay cool, man.
It's good, man. Yeah, the we got off the road with Pistols. I'm not involved with those guys anymore because the Grey Daze. In the end, my solo project, I have just too much shit going on, and I had to drop something.
Something had to give. So Pistols is gone.
Gone.
All right, all right. So what's
Yep.
what's up with the solo material then? When is that coming?
I uh I am actually working with a producer, Trev Lukather,
Oh
who
yeah,
is, you know Trev?
I do, I do. I do know.
What's up, Sean?
Hey,
Hey guys, how you doing?
sorry,
Good.
mid conversation, but yeah, definitely say hi to Trev for me. He had a band called ZGF for a minute there that I talked to him about and stuff, so I know him a little bit.
So he actually just started a new band and they just got signed, and he's got some really cool shit happening right now. And
Sweet.
so I hopped into the studio with him. We wrote a few songs, and one of my managers caught wind of it, and we'll see, dude. I don't know.
Look forward to hearing it. Sean, appreciate the time, and then sorry, just catching up here with Chris, and we were talking about old friends and stuff. And dude, no way to not talk about your old friend and why we're talking today regarding Grey Daze and Chester, obviously. And I was hoping you could take me back. Do you remember when you first met Chester? Was it chemistry class? Take me back to when you first met him back in the day.
I was introduced to Chester through a mutual friend named Chris Hewlett, who was trying out to be a guitar player in our band, and he said he knew this kid. He was a couple years younger than us, but he was playing with his brother. He said he sounds just like Eddie Vedder. We should get him to come down and try out for vocals. And I said, "Cool, bring him down." And then a couple of days later, he brought him down. It was just he walked in, and he was this skinny little kid. And I just remember thinking, "Oh man, there's no way this kid's God, what a waste of time." And then he walked up to the microphone and started singing live from Pearl Jam, and we're all like, "Wow, this kid's great." And then he told us, he's like, "Well, I'm 15. I think at the time I was 17." And he's like, "I gotta go." We asked, "Do you want to join the band?" He said, "Well, I gotta go ask my dad. Will you come talk to him with me?" So I drove back to Chester's house and sat in his living room, waited for his dad to get home. And his dad was a police lieutenant
Oh
and
wow.
showed up back at the house in his full, police uniform. And I remember thinking, "Oh God," because at the time I had super long hair and I looked like probably whatever parent didn't want their kid hanging out with.
Right, right, right.
Um, but I just sat down and had a real conversation with his dad, and I said, "Look, man, your son has a lot of talent, and not that I'm anybody. I was 17 and I wasn't successful at the time, but I said, we want to do this band, and we think he'd be good. What do you think?" And he just made Chester make a bunch of promises about staying on his schoolwork and making sure he wasn't out too late, that type of stuff. And he agreed to let him try it. So kudos to Chester's dad for letting him actually jump in.
Yeah, right. He could have put a kibosh on the whole thing. We would have never known who Chester was.
That's
Yep.
right.
Crazy, man. Well, I did want to talk about the show we got coming up and talk a little bit about the last album, The Phoenix, and get your opinion on a couple things. And a little bit of this will be what I've already gotten into with Cris. But let's start off with the show, man. We got you in our neck of the woods, August 19th, Canyon Montclair. Cris has played there before. Beautiful room, beautiful sound set. And the devotional, the Depeche Mode tribute band opening. Was Chester a big Depeche Mode fan?
Yeah, Depeche Mode was his favorite group and my favorite group. So some of the first albums artwork was inspired from the Violator album, which was our favorite record. We listened to Depeche Mode stuff all the time. We would take lyrical ideas. So he was a massive, massive Depeche Mode fan.
Awesome. You know, that was another thing I was thinking of, Sean, too. You know, every friend you have, especially when it comes to music, there's always a band that they turn you on to, and there's always a band that they champion. I'm curious, man. I bet there was one band that Chester like championed that he turned you on to, and there's probably one that he did turn you on to, and one that he always loved, and you're like, nah, dude, I just don't get it. Is there one?
Yeah, so it's, you know, it swings both ways on that one. So I actually introduced him to Depeche Mode through a girlfriend that had introduced me to, named April at the time. And then because she was getting me to listen to it, and then of course he was around us, and then we kind of all became huge Depeche Mode fans. He turned me on to a group called Keen back in 2005, 6. And he and I went and saw them in concert together in Vegas at the Mandalay Bay Cajun House at the time, or House of Blues, I believe it is.
Right.
And I became a long-time super fan of Keen, and was hoping we could get Tom Chaplin to sing on one of our songs one of these days with us. But let's see, what else did he? What band did he pitch me that I didn't like? Nothing that pops in the top of my brain. You know, he was such a music lover though, that he just was always listening to new stuff. And you know, some of the stuff, I guess if I didn't like it, it really wouldn't stick in my mind.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we both thought that we liked the band Hoobastank, but we thought they had the worst band name of all time, and we used to make fun of that quite a bit. So
that's the bass player's middle name or something, isn't it?
I don't know about
There's
that.
no way that's the bass player's middle name.
I
calling
think it
bullshit.
No, I think it is, man. I'm gonna look it up.
And you know, they used to be like a ska band too, like they had like a horn section and everything. So but that kind of ska kind of sounds a little bit more in line. But what we know them for, yeah, you're right. It's an odd band name for sure. Doesn't make sense.
It's like if I'm thinking of a band name to never get female fans, that's the band name I would pick.
And obviously that wasn't a problem for them after they wrote a song like The Reason and sold millions and millions of albums.
But can you imagine if they would have had some beautiful name? Like, it just, to me, in my mind, I think like business wise, it would have been exponentially better.
Yeah. I mean, every name sounds weird in the beginning. Even like Smashing Pumpkins sounds weird to begin with, you know?
But it doesn't turn off female fans like Hoobastank. Sorry. I'm just saying it how it is.
I love it, man. Well, you know, and touching upon the show again, too, imagine it's just going to be the first 2 albums that you've released so far, right? All Grey Daze material.
Yeah, yep. I think we have, 19 or 20 songs, Cris?
Yeah. We're playing almost the entire catalog at Montclair. And, you know, it was really cool, like, especially some of these big songs like Soul Song, Sickness, some of these songs that have done really well in the charts. They translate extremely well live, and it is a lot of fun to play these songs live, man.
Yeah, you know, in touching upon the Depeche Mode love, Saturation, Strange Love, was that a little ode to Depeche Mode?
Well, originally when Chester wrote the first rendition of the lyrics, it was called Strange Love, and then we didn't want to rip off Depeche Mode's Strange Love at the time because they were such a big influence on us. So we changed the song to Saturation. And then I got with the band as we were rewriting this stuff in the studio. I said, let's go back to his original intent. on this and added as a byline. So Saturation, Strange Love, because Saturation still was a song for the Grey Daze catalog, and I didn't want to, you know, take that out of there. But I still wanted to add that little bit of his original intent with the lyrics.
I love it.
So,
you know, and listening to a lot of the Grey Daze music, and Chris, you could probably speak to this, it's a lot deeper, like deeper tones, more of a bass voice than we're used to hearing him in Linkin Park. I feel like a lot deeper notes and stuff with the Grey Daze material.
Dude, the dynamics that Chester had with Grey Daze is insane. You know, with LP, it's very much, you know, in this range right here. And then when you go back to Grey Daze, when you go back to Chester 15 to 22 years old, there's so much soul, there's so much blues. You can hear the eclectic genres that he was listening to at that time. Pearl Jam, you know, all of these were coming out of him, and it was interesting for me to hear Chester in that vein, because I'd never heard Chester like that before.
No, yeah, I mean, Mike Shinoda always kind of did the more deeper, bassier kind of part.
Right.
So he never had to, like you said. So Grey Daze, he's doing the full gamut, the full spectrum.
He was, and he did it well. I mean, and he nailed it.
You know, a couple other songs I wanted to bring up, Sean. Curious too, talking about love for other bands, the cover of the Dramarama classic, Anything, Anything. I'm curious if you guys had fell in love with it the same way. For me, when I think of that tune, I always think of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 and that tune being in that movie. Is that how you came upon it too, or was it just an old punk rock song that had been around a long time?
I'll be honest, I never had an affinity for that song until Chester brought it into rehearsal. He said he wanted to cover the track. That was a Chester idea. And it probably did come from something like him watching Nightmare on Elm Street, because I don't remember him ever being a huge Dramarama fan. But when we originally covered it back in the day, it grew on me. And quite honestly, I think Chester sings it better than the original. It's one of those songs. And when you do a cover song, and you can do that, and I'm sure there's millions of people who disagree with me, but that's just the way I felt about it. I always loved his angst and his ability to connect with the emotional intent of that song, of the lyrics, with John Easdale. We actually played with Dramarama back in the day, and
Wow.
John Easdale actually asked him not to sing the song live, which was a weird request. But you know, I always, once we started playing it, I started to love and appreciate that song. But prior to that, I think it was more of a Chester thing to me.
Interesting. You know, the other song I wanted to bring up too on the Phoenix, that talking about Chester's voice, that I didn't realize how close it was to a guy that pitched in on the record, Richard Patrick of Filter and Believe Me, and their screams are kind of in the same. I don't know, I'm not a singer. I play drums like you, but they're kind of in the same range, same tone. I never realized that similarity before until hearing their voices together. How did that come about?
Well, I mean, it was honestly very random and very fast. We had, SJ and I had written that little vocal chorus part because the original version of Believe Me didn't have a chorus the way we restructured it. It just kind of was taken away. So we wrote that secondary vocal line, and we had a couple people that we were hoping would come in and sing it, and but they just never got back to us or didn't get back to the record label, or however that happened. And then as we're sitting there talking about recording the song, we had the space. We knew we were going to get somebody. And then our engineer, Brian Virtue, said, "Hey, you know who was a big fan of Chester was Richard Patrick from Filter." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I said, I don't know him though. And he goes, "I know him. Let me reach out to him." And so he reached out. He said, "Hey, Richard, we have this thing. Are you interested?" And Rich was like, "Absolutely. This is a huge gift." He goes, and he literally sat us down in the studio and said, "Thank you for this gift.
Wow.
This was an honor to come in here and be able to sing with Chester." And it just happened so organically, and literally within 24 hours from idea to him in the studio. He came in, SJ kind of mouthed the part to him. I gave him the lyrics, and he went in and literally knocked it out in 40 minutes. I mean, it was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. I can't
He's hitting some crazy notes on that song too, man. Oh my God.
That's what I was gonna say. I can't wait till you do that, Chris.
Yeah, right.
That part.
Hey,
we will do our best.
Last show that we had SJ, who produced both of the Grey Day albums. We had SJ come up and sing that chorus. So That's the thing. We'll probably bring up some special guests out there at Montclair. Who knows?
Yeah, that was my next thing. Is there going to be any special guests? It sounds like you guys are working on some.
Yeah, we'll have at least one or two for the Agora Hill show and for Montclair.
Beautiful, man. Looking forward to it. And then the big question comes too: is this a trilogy? Is there a third chapter? Is there more music? Is there more material?
It's a great
We're working
question.
on that. Yeah, we're working on that. I think it's important for Cris to get his own footprint in the band. And the guys and I discussed when we brought him in, and originally we were just going to do some of these shows. And then as the fan base has kind of really brought him into the fold and accepted him quite well, it's nice to play these songs because they're so meaningful to us. But we also want Cris to have some ownership in what we're doing. So we are going back in and starting to write with Cris, and we hopefully we'll have some new music. I'm not sure about a full album yet, but we'll at least record a couple of songs and see how they're received. I think that's important to do.
So
I
moving
think for
forward,
me,
it's going to be with Cris then.
I think for me, it's all about what the fans want. If the fans want it, then we'll do it. We started out, like Sean said, we started out with the idea of just a few shows, and then a few shows turned into a few more shows. And if this snowball effect keeps happening, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But we first and foremost just wanted to make sure that we're honoring the memory of what Chester did with Grey Daze, and that's why the tour link is called For You Chester. That's what we're doing right now. So we'll see what happens. But if the fans want it, I don't see why we can't bring it to them.
And Sean, I'll ask you the question. I've already heard Chris's version of it, but how did Cris come on your radar, Sean?
Well, Cris was trying to get a hold of me on a dating site, and
Grinder,
no, actually,
Grinder.
I was introduced to Cris from Loma Vista. They had me fly out and do a like a fan meet and greet pre-listen to the Amends album, and I went out there, and I think they had maybe 15 of the fans, of the ambassadors out there, and Cris had, I think, got invited last minute by somebody who was asked to go, and I think literally within like 3 hours prior to the event, he agreed to come and showed up. So I don't think he was even initially supposed to be there. And then he and I just talked. I think he was one of like 2 or 3 guys there. The rest of them were women. And he listened, and I remember him just having I just remember him having a really great questions and comments about the music without like kissing up to me. He was just being honest and very direct. And so we had this like cool bro moment, and as keep in touch. And he followed us on Instagram. I followed back, and then, we had got asked to do some pretty large concerts from that first record that we had to pass on because we just didn't have a way that we could wrap our minds around playing live. It felt like we were betraying Chester by doing it. We didn't want to do this hologram thing, and it wasn't like we were going to be able to get 12 giant rock stars to come out and sing an entire set. It felt like an impossible task. And then we just sat down with the band one day and said, what does this look like if we tried to bring in a singer that maybe isn't super famous, that loves the music, that can sing the music, and just do our best job of doing the songs justice live, letting the whatever vocalist we bring in be himself and not try to be a replacement for Chester, because I think that would feel disingenuous and kind of hokey.
Yeah.
So Cris was one of the first people we reached out to, and they just had a conversation, and we got everybody on a Zoom call and just kind of talked it through. And so we agreed to do one show. That was the original inception idea. And we agreed to do Youth Fest out here with Godsmack and I Prevail in what was the show, March or April or something? Or was it May? May. It was in May 6th.
May 6th.
And so for the next few months, from basically November to May, we brought Cris out from LA like twice a month and rehearsed. I think we had a total of like 12 or 13 rehearsals with Cris, and he did great. And when we got on stage, I mean, it was an audio train wreck as far as the production side, but as far as the band side, we had a great time. It was a good experience. And we said, okay, let's try a few more of these and see how it feels.
You never think about taking over the vocals yourself?
I can't. I'm not a good enough singer. I can't.
You do a lot of the backing vocals though with Grey Daze and stuff, right?
Yeah, but it's easy to back up Chester. It's not easy to try to sing what Chester does. I can't do what Cris does. I can never do what Chester does. That's not something I was born with or could even work towards. And I'm not delusional about it either.
I love it, man.
I'm just a really good looking drummer, and I'm fine with that role.
You didn't want to have
Yep.
that headset or the swing mic stand to swing in front of you, you know, for the.
I told him to have the little Backstreet Boy microphone,
The Tank
dude.
Commander.
Come on.
Guys, I appreciate all the time. Last couple of things I wanted to hit you with, and I've already asked this question to Cris before, so to be curious to see how you do with this one, Sean. But it's a little music debate. Linkin Park, album 1, Hybrid Theory, versus album 2, Meteora. Which is your favorite out of those two? If you had to pick just one.
Oh, Meteora all day long. Meteora is much better songwriting. I feel like the first album, they're both great records, and I'm proud of both of those albums, what those guys did. I feel like album 1 was their experimental, how do we do this together album, which was they created an awesome recipe. Album 2 was the finished product that went out that goes on the menu for the restaurant, so to speak. Like, to me, the songwriting becomes so much stronger by album 2 that it's not even comparable to me.
Me and Cris are on the other side of the fence on that one.
Well,
I got an emotional attachment. I have an emotional attachment to Hybrid Theory, though, because that was the first time, that was the first time I heard anything like that. And I could tell you exactly where I was, what I was doing when I heard it. That might play a part.
That's the beauty of music, is it's subjective. There's no wrong or right answers. And I think it's great that you guys think differently than I do, because that just means I have my own attachments to whatever it is that I'm saying. But they're both great records. They deserve all the accolades and success they ever had. And I'm super proud of those guys for what they did.
Do you have a favorite Linkin Park tune that we could play in addition to Grey Daze?
Sean? Meteora. I keep wanting to say With You, but that's not it. It's oh my God.
Lying From You?
Help me out here, Cris. I tell you all the time. Lying From You, Thank You. That's the song. Yeah, that's my favorite Linkin Park track.
That song slaps when it's played live too.
Yeah.
Dude, I love that, and Hit the Floor, one of the heavier tunes on that album.
Dude, Hit the Floor is so underrated, man.
I remember going out with Chester on the road several times, and I would always wait for that track if that was in the set, and love to watch them perform that song. So
underrated, man. That song is underrated.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think that's, to me, I'm a groove drum player, so that's one of the songs that Rob really locks in and creates a badass groove that goes along. And I mean, obviously they have a lot of a hip hop element to it, but that, to me, that song stands out.
Love it. And one other band I got to bug you about. We're an old school radio station. We do a feature called Mandatory Metallica every night at 10 p.m. And curious, Sean, you being a drummer, man, how's your opinion on Lars? I mean, does he deserve all the flack he gets, or is it unjust?
Man, that's a great question. Lars is actually a pretty good drummer, and people that talk crap about him, I think, just don't like his style of drumming. He's actually a good drummer. I think there is some credibility when he tries to paint outside the lines a little bit too much in some of his stuff. And as I'm watching them write music in the studio, I see Hetfield James get a little bit frustrated because Lars is trying to come up with this off-time thing all the time. But that's just Lars's creative bone. And I think, songs like Inner Sandman wouldn't have happened if he didn't have that kind of let's color outside the lines. I do kind of like it when he's a little bit more straightforward. I like Ride the Lightning, I think, is one of my favorite Metallica songs, and that's not a difficult song. It has a couple of weird timing things, but I like it a little bit more straightforward. For me, the drums in a song are what create the groove, your ability to move yourself to the music. And when you're trying to jerk away from the natural movement of a song, when you're dancing or when you're moving, I think that upsets the natural groove that should be there. I know I'm giving you a really long answer, but that's just the way I like to analyze music, especially drums. I think one of the guys that gets away with it, that it's really difficult to argue against it, is Danny Carey from Tool, because he's found a way to do these off-time signatures that still make you believe in the groove that's there. As opposed to some of the off-time stuff that Lars does that's a little bit unnatural feeling. Danny makes it feel very natural. So I think there's the two ways you can look at it.
Interesting. Yeah, I played drums a little bit as a kid, so I mean, in high school and college and stuff. So, yeah, I agree with Danny Carey. I think the band is just trying to follow Danny Carey and Tool music. You know,
Well, those guys are
setting
just
a tempo.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, one of my most favorite drummers, and is not a stellar drummer as far as the technical side, is Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers, because the guy knows how to write music as a rock drummer very specifically to what he's doing. The guy has some of the best straightforward grooves that are out there. And I could care less if he could play, 7/8 time scale all over the place. I want to be able to dance and move to the music. And he's one of those drummers that just gets it every single time.
Well, dude, one of the debates I've been having this year with Metallica, trying to come up with a specific question for Mandatory Metallica, debating their best album. Me and my friend Brad, who's in a band called Against the Sun, we've been debating that all year. His pick is Ride the Lightning. My pick is Master of Puppets. Curious to get each of yours take out of those two. If you had to pick one of those two from Metallica.
I would probably go with Ride the Lightning, because I really like Trapped Under Ice and Ride the Lightning. But Master of Puppets is a great record. I mean, those guys are gods in my eyes. Those are both great records.
I think I was introduced to Metallica with Ride the Lightning, or Ride the Lightning. So I think that again, going back to the personal connection, has to be Ride the Lightning.
Ah, interesting. I favor Master a little bit more. I feel like it was a little bit more of a complete album. Definitely sounded better, not perfect, but I think sounded better than Ride the Lightning. And then just the diversity between like a song like Orion and a song like Battery or something, like they kind of ran the whole gamut in there.
I mean, I would love to hear those old albums remixed in a modern day, kind of like what we did with the Man. I would love to hear something like that. But I'll tell you, my favorite album from Metallica would be Injustice for All, and that goes to maybe not the songwriting side of it so much, but just where it was for me emotionally and the moment in time that it held for me. There's just a very special place when I was listening to that record. So I loved Injustice for All. It's my favorite Metallica album, but I love Master Puppets and Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, I think you're like me, like Injustice was your entry point, right? And then you went backwards.
Well, no, my entry point actually would have been when I was in the 7th or 8th grade with Kill 'Em All. And it was cool. I liked it, but I really became like a rabid Metallica fan when Injustice for All came out.
Despite the lack of bass.
I've seen
That's so why we need it remixed.
Yes.
Well, God, it's such an interesting topic too, because I can totally see where the guys in the band were coming from on that. I mean, they had a possible task for Jason Newsted at the time, and kudos to him for stepping up and at least trying to do what he had to do. The guy ended up being in the band, far longer than Cliff Burton was ever in the band.
Yeah.
And I don't think those guys ever got over that. And it's really unfortunate for Jason when you watch those interviews and how he was treated. And and I'm sure those guys feel absolutely horrible about the way that they treated him at the time, but it was unintentional. It wasn't his fault. And those guys just had some massive healing to do. And unfortunately, he was the healing stone, so to speak, in front of them. But I would love to hear somebody get a hold of the master tracks and remix them in a modern format. I just think it could be something truly magical. It was already magical, but I think that could be done really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting that Metallica's never really done that around their career. I mean, they've come through all the anniversaries. They've never done any remixing or remastering or anything all along the way. And now they have the rights to their own music too. So you would think it'd be that much easier for them, but they've kind of just left it as is.
It's interesting to me because they're not a nostalgia act. These guys came 30 years ago. They started, and I think that's probably why they're not revisiting it right now, is because they don't consider themselves a nostalgia act, and they're not a nostalgia act.
I think
Death Magnetic.
Yeah, 40 years, 83.
Yeah.
Oh God. I'm old, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
But it's
I
not
think
a
I
but
was
it's
like
not a it's not a
9.
nostalgia act yet. So they're not going to go back and, rehash. They're still creating new music.
Yeah, new album's phenomenal.
But
Sean,
I think what you can get from that though, Chris, is you can introduce new fans to old music through doing something like that. I don't think you're gonna. I mean, maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think what they could do is open up a different audience portal by taking those old tracks and give one of them to Skrillex, or give one of them to, I don't know, somebody like a Skrillex or something,
Yeah.
or even another rock band, and let the other rock band kind of mess with it a little bit. Give a song to Mike Shinoda, let him remix it and do something. Who knows? I just think that there's a massive upside of what you could do. But I clearly I'm not in their head, and that would be, it's their music. They get to do what they want with it.
yeah, absolutely. Do you have a song we could play for mandatory Metallica for you, Sean?
I'll go with Trapped Under Ice, since I was talking about earlier.
Nice. Beautiful. We'll rock that one for you. Beautiful, guys. Thank you so much for the time. Can't wait to see you out there on the 19th at Montclair, and I'll share the interview and links and all that stuff with you when it airs the weekend right before.
Awesome, Mike. If you want to come out,
man.
Yeah, I'm for sure going to come out.
No.
I definitely want to come out to the show, so I'll remind you about that, Chris.
Awesome.
All right.
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much for the time. We'll see you out there on the 19th and talk soon.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you, Mike. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.